Thank you for this opportunity to present on Navaratri Kolu during Navaratri, the festival of 9 nights. Right through India, except for places where it is celebrated as a return of Lord Rama after the slaying of Ravana, the festival is dedicated to the goddess Mahishasuramardini, who has slayed the buffalo-faced demon Mahishasura. And some of the oldest panels which depict the goddess killing the demon are located not far from Chennai in a place called Mamallapuram. And this panel is the photograph is taken from the panel at Mamallapuram. And this panel itself goes back to the 7th century and the 8th century. Around that time, this panel would have been carved. And you can make out that the goddess is on a lion, and then she is wielding several weapons. All the gods are surrounding her, and her own attendants are present, and they are slaying the demon who has got a buffalo face. He's raised a mace against her, and then she is wielding a bow and an arrow, and she's going to kill him. So the battle continues for 9 nights because the Rakshasas are very powerful at night. And finally, it concludes on Vijayadasami day, which is the 10th day, when the goddess finally kills him. This is the basis of the Navaratri festival. And it is from there that we have the concept of Kolu and many other attendant celebrations to the Navaratri. One of the very, the fact is that this Kolu itself doesn't have any historic documentation, none. We have no idea as to how old the concept of Kolu is. What is Kolu? What was Kolu in the ancient times? We have no idea. But there is a hint in Adi Shankara's stotra on goddess Sharadamba at Sringeri, where in one of the final verses of 8 verses on the goddess, he says that you mount the deer, you mount the horse, you mount the lion, you mount the bird, the Garuda, you mount the swan, you mount the bull, and then you mount on the 9th day, you become Saraswati. And this is a line that he quotes, that he mentioned. This he mentions in his 8-verse stotra on goddess Sharadamba and Sringeri. And even today, on the 9 nights, the deity there is decorated with various mounts. You can see over here that she is on a swan on this particular day when she is called Brahmi. She is considered to be an incarnation of Brahma on this particular day. Now, why does the goddess take on various mounts? Because it is believed that no single deity can kill Mahishasura. So all the deities have to give their collective strength to her, and it is with their collective strength that she finally kills him. So on one day, she mounts a swan and she becomes an embodiment of Brahma. Another day, she is on Garuda, so she becomes an embodiment of Vishnu. The 3rd day, she gets on to a bull, she becomes an embodiment of Shiva. And finally, on the last day, she is herself when she is on the lion, and then she kills the Rakshasa. So we know that there is a concept of decorating the goddess in various ways, in various fashions during the festival of 9 nights. And this appears to be very unique to those who worshipped the goddess, as opposed to those who worshipped Shiva, or those who worshipped Vishnu or Surya or Ganapati. So these were Shaktas. They worshipped the goddess Shakti, and they believed in worshipping her in this way. Sometime in the 15th and the 16th century, when the Vijayanagar Empire was very, very powerful, we have a very good description of the festival of 9 nights in Vijayanagar itself. And that festival must have taken place on this platform, which is known as the Mahanavami Dibba. At that point of time, when the Vijayanagar was very, very powerful, this must have been a grand platform on which there would have been a lot of woodwork. The king would have been seated. And there is this Portuguese traveler called Domingo Pais, who comes and he gives us a very beautiful description of Navaratri. In fact, there are 2 very unique descriptions of Navaratri in Domingo Pais. One, he says, is that in Vijayanagar, they construct a series of wooden platforms. And on top of the wooden platform, for 9 days, The holiest of holy men climb up and they sit there. And they are hit and pelted with every available fruit and vegetable by the passing people. And they also laugh at them. But these saints are expected to be seated over there without showing any signs of disturbance whatsoever, despite all that is being thrown at them. And then they come down and they are worshipped. This goes on for 9 nights. Thankfully, such a festival doesn't exist any longer. But what is also very interesting is that they say that during the festival of 9 nights, in front of this platform, all the 9 vassal kings of the emperor come and they put up makeshift palaces in wood. Each one of them vies with the other in displaying his artistic talents and the skills that he can command from his own kingdom. He comes to the emperor's palace in front of this platform. They construct makeshift platforms which are so big that dancers can dance inside them. And the king then sits on the platform and views a parade of animals and horses and dancers and people going by in front of him. When you look at the carvings at the base of the Mahamanavami Dibba, you're able to see several animals going by in procession. You have elephants, you have camels, you have horses, and then you have deer. You've got hunting scenes. And when you look closer, you're able to identify a variety of people. You have dancers, you have drummers, you have pipers, and then very interestingly, you have Europeans, you have Chinese, and you have Arabs as well, which just goes to indicate how important Vijayanagar was. And on the 9 days, the entire empire would come together to celebrate and pay tribute to the emperor. So the concept of holding court during Navaratri becomes very, very important from the time of the Vijayanagar Empire. On the one hand, the king is holding court so that people can come and pay tribute to him. On the other hand, the goddess is holding court because she is going along with all her attendant deities in order to vanquish the demon Mahishasura. In Telugu and in Tamil, we have a common root word for holding court or darbar. In Telugu, it's called Koluvu, and in Tamil, it is called Kolu. And that is the term that over a period of time has got corrupted to Golu. Kolu has become Golu. And basically, the idea is to represent the king in his court, the goddess in her court, and to worship them on these 9 days. The Vijayanagar Empire itself is destroyed, or rather the capital of Hampi or Vijayanagar is destroyed by the confederate of the 5 sultanates in 1565 at the Battle of Rakkasi Tangid or Talikota, as we call it. And then the empire fragments and all the Nayaks become independent rulers. All the viceroys become independent rulers. And among the important viceroys, you had the viceroy of Mysore, who is the Wodeyar. Then you had the Nayaks in Chenji, which is not far from Chennai, the Nayaks of Tanjavur, and the Nayak of Madurai. Much later, you would have independent kingdoms further down south. All of them would adopt this festival of 9 nights and conducting a darbar on these 9 nights when the goddess in the temple would be decorated and she would have her darbar. The king in his palace would have his darbar and he would be holding Kolu. So here you have a portrait of King Thirumalai Nayak with his queen. This is in a temple at Srivilliputur. Thirumalai Nayak was the most powerful 17th century ruler of Madurai, and we have records of his Navaratri Darbar in his enormous palace. Similarly, in the 19th century, end 18th century, early 19th century, we had a very artistic ruler of Tanjavur called King Sharfoji. He came from Maharashtra, he came from Marathi origin, and this is his Darbar hall. And you can see at the back, you have a whole lot of deities depicted in plaster. And this is where the king would sit. Of course, this statue was made of him in marble by the Europeans. And this is where the king would sit in Darbar and witness dances. He would also witness people coming to pay tribute to him. In short, he would be holding Koluvu or Kolu. And from that, we have this concept of the common people also celebrating Kolugu in their houses. So this is the Kolu in my house this particular year. Now, what do you see? You have a wooden platform and the number of steps is always odd. So you either have 1 or you have 3 or you have 5, 7, 9. Usually we don't go beyond 9. And on that, we have a whole series of dolls depicted. Now, in this case, you have a small Ganesha on the wall, which is supposed to be 1. Then you have 2, then you have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then you have 9 on the floor. So this is how the entire concept of the odd number is built up. Now, how would the concept of a Kolu have really developed over a period of time? And in this, there is only a lot of assumption and guesswork because of, and only based on accounts from ancestors on how they conducted the worship. So at a very basic level, you would have had wooden dolls. And this particular section, for instance, in my house, this section is called Marapachi. Marapachi basically means dolls made of wood. And they all come from near the Tirupati region. And they are made of silk cotton or red sandalwood. And it's only one kind of wood that is used to make these dolls. So you can have Vishnu and Lakshmi. You can have human figurines. You can have very basic human figurines. For instance, this particular one that you're seeing in my hand is more than 100 years old. It has come down for 4 generations in my family. It's quite damaged, as you can see, but we still keep it during Navaratri. It just establishes continuity in the family of the Navaratri celebrations. The bigger ones are decorated in garments. As you can see, this one has got a 9-yard sari and she's put on a lot of jewels. The male half has got a typical traditional dhoti that he has worn. He's got a sacred thread. He's put on a chain. You can also see that half his ear is missing because this statue itself is more than 100 years old now. And it is suffered damage over a period of time when people have got transferred. We've moved here, there, everywhere. And finally, we brought it back safely. So Marapachi would have been the very basic set of idols that would have been used in very olden times for decoration. And then we have had in one of the common hymns that we recite during Navaratri is the Lalita Sahasranama. What is the Lalita Sahasranama? It is 1,000 names of the goddess Lalita. And in that, in one line, in one of the early sections of the Lalita Sahasranama, it says Karanguli Nakotpanna Narayana Dashakritihi. That is, from her 10 fingers came the 10 avatars of Vishnu. And so what we then do is one of the common set of idols that every house will have is this 10 avatars of Vishnu. So you have got Matsya, which is not visible in this picture. Then you've got Kurma, Vishnu as the tortoise, Varaha, Vishnu as the boar, Vamana, Vishnu as the dwarf, Narasimha, Vishnu, half man, half lion, Parashurama, Vishnu who wields the axe, Rama, Balarama. And in Tamil-speaking families, you will have Krishna and Kalki. In Andhra families, you will have Buddha and you will have Kalki. Anywhere, Andhra, Orissa and all that, they consider Krishna to be the supreme being and to be above the 10 incarnations of Vishnu. And therefore, he is not accorded a place in the 10 incarnations and Buddha takes his place. As you can see, Buddha is over here in this photograph, right at the corner. So this is yet another very, very traditional depiction of Vishnu's 10 avatars. And that is almost more or less a compulsory element in the Dashavatara, in the Navaratri Kolu celebrations. Now, what are the idols made of? At one point of time, made of wood, later made of clay. Today, you have even paper mache, you have plastic, sadly. You have several other things which are incorporated into the Navaratri celebrations. But the idea is to have a beautiful display of dolls. Now, traditionally, in my house, this would have been the way Navaratri would have been celebrated around 100 years ago. So there is a portrait of the goddess. Then you have a silver face of the goddess, which is like Gauri in Maharashtra. You mount her with a coconut at the back and then a silver vessel in the front. You can see the true traditional Marapachis standing on either side. and every day worship will be done to the goddess during the 9 nights. Then the face will be removed and kept very carefully inside. The Marapachis will be packed away, kept very carefully inside, to be brought back next year during the Navaratri, and then to be passed from generation to generation, usually to the eldest son in the family. And from him, it will go on into the next generation. And that is how the worship will continue. Now, sometime late in the 19th and early in the 20th century, people became more and more imaginative in terms of what they wanted to include in their Navaratri Kolu. Raja Ravi Verma was a very, very popular portrait painter of that time. And Ravi Verma began painting a number of themes from the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. So, Draupadi Chirharan, then the Dyuta Krida, the gambling scene between Yudhishthira and the Kauravas, the death of Bhishma. Similarly, in Ramayana, Rama blessing Ahalya, Rama breaking the vow before marrying Sita, Rama, Sita, Lakshmana crossing the Ganga in the Sarayu, and so on and so forth. Ravi Verma did a number of portraits, mainly for the kings in Mysore, in Baroda, in Pudukkottai, in several other places. Now, he not only created those portraits, he also created a printing press. And from there, the lithographs of these paintings became very popular, and they were being sold right across the country. Our doll makers became very inspired by those sequences that Ravi Verma was painting. They began to create dolls depicting Ramayana, Mahabharata, our gods, etc., based entirely on Ravi Verma's depictions. What is very interesting, we used to have a neighbor not far from here. They had a set of the Ramayana with them, each one not more than 6. It was a set of tableau, around 8 or 10 series of sequences from the Ramayana. And the dolls were almost 90 years old and preserved beautifully. I used to be very jealous of their Navaratri Kolu, and I used to make it a point of going and attending their Kolu and venting my spleen later at how beautiful their dolls were. But then they are very beautiful. So you have the birth of Rama, and then you have Rama marrying Sita. Then you have Kaikeyi demanding that Rama goes to the forest. Then this particular sequence, of course, this is taken from somewhere else. This is not that house's Navaratri that I have got here. So Rama crossing the Sarayu river with Sita and Lakshmana. Then Shurpanakha coming. Then the Maya Hiran. Then, Ravana kidnapping Sita and fighting with Jatayu. Rama meeting Hanuman. Hanuman going to Lanka and setting fire to it. Rama killing Ravana. And then finally Rama, Lakshmana, Sita, Hanuman, everybody together. That is the set. And they used to make a beautiful display out of it. So Ravi Verma was a great inspiration. There were temple festivals became a great sequence as well. So here you have Vishnu mounted on Garuda at a temple just before the procession. And here you have that depicted as a clay doll, Vishnu with both his consort Sridevi and Bhudevi on top of Garuda. So this became a very common depiction in Navaratri Kolu. Then the 10 avatars of Vishnu, as I told you, but here based upon the portrait of Ravi Verma of Matsya Avatara. So a copy of that here depicted as a doll. We always traditionally depicted Lakshmi as a seated goddess. The idea was that Lakshmi is Chanchala. If you make her stand, she will run away. And so she had to be depicted seated. Ravi Verma changed the whole thing. He depicted Lakshmi as a standing goddess. Thereafter, we began to get goddesses in standing fashion as our dolls. Then in the 20th century, you had a very, very interesting set of inspirations. Tamil theatre became very, very powerful. And in Tamil theatre, you had a play called Alli Arjuna, which is an adaptation of the Mahabharata. As you know, Arjuna used to go and get married in 50,000 places right through the Mahabharata. Now, this does not occur in Vyasa's Mahabharata, but it is a Tamil version. He goes to a kingdom where everything is done by the women, and the queen is Alli. And Alli Arjuna was a very popular play early in the 20th century. So we had dolls depicting Alli. And then came cinema. When cinema began to talk, some of the most famous actors and actresses became subjects of dolls. So you had a child artist called Baby Saroja, who used to be a very popular child star early in the 1930s. So you had a whole lot of Baby Saroja dolls that began to come out. And then in 1948, Vaijayanthimala acted and danced in a film called Varkai, which in Hindi came as Bahar, AVM's Bahar. I don't know how many of you remember this film or you have seen it, but even now you can go to YouTube and see it. And there is one song, Saiya Dil Mein Aana Re, Aake Fir Na Jana Re, Cham Chama Cham Cham. This song sung by Shamshad Begum. And it was such a hit that Vaijayanthimala's pose in that particular film became the subject of a doll as well. And this was a very, very popular doll in the 1930s and the 1940s. Then one of the very common benefits of this Navaratri Kolu has been that it gives rise to a lot of creativity, and it also gives a lot of publicity to native skills and native artisans. So this is called the Tanjabu Doll. It pivots at 3 levels. The face is on a pivot, the midriff is on a pivot, the base is on a pivot. So when you shake her, she'll move on 3 different levels. And this is a doll that is unique to the Tanjavur area. And this has become very, very popular, and it is packed and sent all over the world. Similarly, you have families that collect ivory figurines, and then they put that up and they make a presentation out of it. Similarly, you have families that collect bronze or brass, and they put up an entire display out of that. So all of this gives a lot of work and benefits to native artisans and craftspeople. Take, for instance, this set of handmade dolls, handmade toys for children. So girls will normally play with these set of dolls, and they will there is a chakki, then there is a balan, and then there is a pan on which you can make dosas, all this, there is a stove. So this itself can be in silver, it can be in stone, it can be in so many other things. So these are all, again, traditional pieces which children will keep on display in Navaratri. The other very important aspect of Kolu, apart from the fact that artisans benefit greatly from it, is that children's creativity is greatly enhanced or encouraged when it comes to Navaratri. So traditionally, children will be made to dress like Krishna or Radha, and then they will go to neighboring houses and invite families to come to their house for Kolu. Now, those women will come home, and when they come, there will be a display of singing and even dancing. So you sing and you lose your stage fear, because from the age of 5 or 6, your parents ask you to go, your grandparents ask you to go and invite the neighbors, they come home, then you sing. So in my family, for instance, all of us grew up singing because of Navaratri. So, guests would come home and the whole house would be a floating population of 20 to 30 people in the evenings, 30 to 40 people sometimes. And we would all sing, the neighbors would sing, snide remarks would be made about how badly people sing. Then we would try to improve next time. So there would be a lot of competition. We would say, oh, that person sings the same song every year. We shouldn't do that. We should learn new songs. So all of this would happen during Navaratri. So it was a time of great creativity. It was also a sense of, this was not just women, and it was not a girls only thing. So boys also took a lot of interest in engineering sets. So, you put up temples, you put up a fountain, you put up a tank, you put up dolls coming down to bathe in a river, things like that. So there was also a lot of skill involved in putting it together. So boys and girls in the family really took a lot of interest in getting together a Navaratri. Some families would have a permanent room in which Koluvu would be done. So when we had joint families, there would be a Koluvu room. And this Kolu room used to have a tile that could be removed. And when you removed the tile and looked inside, you would have a temple tank actually built completely inside the house. And you just filled it up with water, put a few fish in it, and made a few plants grow around it, and you had a proper temple tank. We had a permanent set of steps that you could dismantle and kept away. Similarly, the dolls also could be dismantled and put away. Now, every day in the evening, one sweet and one savory would be prepared for offering to the Kolu. Now, this again was something that was of great interest, because when you were growing up, you were perpetually hungry and nobody knew what cholesterol was or what obesity was or lifestyle diseases were. And mind you, it was all very healthy food, because of course the sweet was not very healthy, but you generally got a lot of protein-based preparations, what we call as shundal, lentil-based preparations would be made. So every day a different kind of lentil would be made. One day it will be made out of chana dal, one day it will be made of mashur dal, one day out of arhar dal, and so on, and moong dal. So you would get different kinds of dry preparations, and you would also get a sweet. So that was a major attraction. Once again, going to other people's houses, coming back, exchanging sweets, exchanging savories, making comments on it. This was all part of the Kolu as well. Gradually, sets have become very elaborate. You have all kinds of things. You have temples, you have very beautiful sets, but then sometimes you have pretty garish and ghastly ones as well. For instance, in 1989-90, I remember somebody put up the assassination of Rajiv Gandhi as a set. It was quite horrible, and I could barely bring myself to go and see the Kolu. So sometimes you have very poor taste on display as well. But what is very nice is that it is a festival that is celebrated across Hindu families in various forms, but it is celebrated. So you have elaborate Kolus, you have medium-sized Kolus, you have very small Kolus. At the most, at the smallest level, it will be one doll kept next to the puja and worshipped. Come Vijay Dashmi, come the 10th day, all the dolls will be put back into very safe containers, newspapers, bubble wrap, plastic. Then comes the task of mounting the loft and putting them all away, and then dismantling the steps and putting that away as well, and bidding goodbye to the goddess. I always believe that there's a lot of typical South Indian psyche in the Kolu celebrations. So in the north, for instance, in Bengal, they spend a lot of money every year, and then you immerse the idol, and that's it. Money spent, immersion done. South Indians are, it'll give us a heart attack if you asked us to go and immerse our dolls. So we save them all very carefully. We pack them away, and next year we bring them back. So some of the dolls actually travel generation after generation after generation. Some sadly go away, and then you have to buy new ones. Today, if you ask me, the doll making itself at one time was restricted to a few places. Even today, it is like that. You have a place called Panrutti. Similarly, you have places near Tanjabu. Kanchipuram is very famous. Around after Ganesh Chaturthi, you will find that the doll makers begin coming into the city, begin to step around the famous temples of the city, and they'll occupy all the footpaths, and they will begin to sell their dolls. Cooperatives, government-run cooperatives, will open up their showrooms for doll exhibitions. That's where people go and buy them. Clay dolls have become very expensive today. A 1.5 foot Krishna today costs anywhere between 15,000 to 20,000 rupees. That's the price. And then you have paper mache dolls, which are a little cheaper. Traditionally, people buy very small ones. There are households that believe that no doll should be larger than 6 inches. And there are various practices in place. But overall, it's a very, very colorful and lovely experience. It also brings to light a lot of creativity among the celebrants, also a lot of creativity among the doll makers. For many of them, this is their time when they can earn the maximum amount of money. And then come Vijay Dashmi, there is a sense of flatness because everything has been emptied. Life goes back to routine. But you always have Diwali coming up, which is the next colorful festival. So that, in effect, is Navaratri Kolu. Thank you so much for having been a part of this presentation. I look forward to any questions you may have. Thanks a lot.